So, let's talk about Leland Vittert. You've probably seen him. He's a primetime news anchor, looks like the picture of success, right? But his journey to get there was, well, it was anything but ordinary. It's an incredible story about facing struggles nobody could see, a father's really radical plan, and totally rewriting the rulebook on what it means to succeed. And this quote from Leland himself, it just gets right to the heart of it all. I mean, think about it. He's confident, he's on our screens all the time, but he just doesn't fit that stereotype so many of us have in our heads about autism. Right from the jump, his story really makes you check your own assumptions. So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a kid who was described as socially blind, who struggled so much with basic social cues, end up in a job that is all about communication? It seems almost impossible. To really get how he pulled it off, we have to go way back to the beginning. Okay, so we're rewinding the clock to the 1980s. You have to remember, back then, the way we thought about autism was completely different. There wasn't really a concept of a spectrum. It was much more black and white. You were either considered autistic, which, most people thought of as a severe nonverbal condition, or you just weren't. The best term the experts could come up with for what Leland was going through was social blindness. That was literally the only label they had for a kid who was off the charts smart, but just completely lost when it came to social stuff. The term itself just goes to show how little they really understood back then. And the reality of that social blindness day to day, it was just complete isolation. Leland couldn't make friends, he got bullied for being the weird, smart kid. While other kids were outside playing, he was inside with books on aeronautics. He actually preferred hanging out with adults, because, as he put it, they were the only ones who didn't bully me. So this deep isolation, it was all building toward this huge turning point. Seeing his son struggling so much, Leland's dad, Mark, knew that the usual way of doing things just wasn't going to cut it. So he decided to do something different, something risky, something radical. This quote really lays out his father's philosophy. It's blunt, but it's practical. The world wasn't going to bend for Leland, so Leland was going to have to learn how to navigate the world exactly as it was. It was a pretty demanding, tough love kind of approach, for sure. And what that meant was going completely against the grain. Instead of getting a formal diagnosis, which he worried would just put a label on Leland, his dad avoided it. No special treatment at school. The goal wasn't to shield him from the world, but to give him the tools to build his own self-esteem by taking on real challenges. But here's the thing, this whole kind of crazy strategy, it all hinged on these 5 simple words from a psychologist. This plan would only work if Leland himself was driving the change. He had to want to be part of the world. His dad just saw it as his job to make him want it. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how do you actually do that? Well, Leland's father basically created this practical social blueprint for him. A whole set of tools and rules to help him learn this unspoken social language that, most people just pick up naturally. And this social toolkit was super practical. It had things like the watch tap, a little nonverbal signal his dad would give him at dinner parties. It meant stop talking now and start listening. He was given Dale Carnegie's famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and told to study it like a textbook. And above all, the focus was always on real achievement. This, right here, was the absolute core of it. No empty praise. No, you can do it pep talks. Confidence had to be earned. His dad just knew that telling Leland he was great wasn't going to work. He had to prove to himself that he was capable of great things. And that belief, well, that's what led him to the sky. Flying became the ultimate training ground for this idea. And the achievements were just wow. At 9 years old, he flew a plane from the Mexico border all the way to Canada. At 10, from Alaska to Michigan. These weren't just fun hobbies. These were huge, undeniable accomplishments that built a rock-solid foundation of genuine self-worth. So, all of that brings us right back to today. It's this full circle moment where you can see how all those past struggles shaped the successful person he is now. It really redefines not just his diagnosis, but the whole idea of what it means to live with autism. And this is a really, really important point. Leland was never cured. He is still autistic. His success comes from a lifetime of incredibly hard work, of learning to manage his condition and building this whole toolkit of strategies that let him thrive in a world that wasn't really built for him. This quote from his dad is just so profound.
It shows this incredible level of acceptance. It tells you the plan was never about fixing his son. It was about understanding that this is just fundamentally who he is, and the goal was to help that person find his place in the world.
So what's the big takeaway here? At the end of the day, it's this really powerful idea. His dad's lesson was that a diagnosis is a piece of information, not your destiny. It doesn't get to define you. You and only you get to decide who you are.
Which leaves us with this one last, kind of tricky question to chew on. Leland's parents deliberately avoided a label because they were afraid it would box him in. But today, we often see a diagnosis as a necessary shield to get support. So his story makes you wonder, when does that shield stop protecting you, and when does it start becoming a cage? It's a complicated question, and there's definitely no easy answer.